Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Works of Important British Writers. Um, as you can see, we don't have many students this semester, but I think we should still be able to keep going. If you're worried that this class might be canceled, you can spread the word among your friends and classmates that there's a course they can take on Friday afternoon. So, I don't know what you've heard about this course before, but it used to be one of the hardest courses I taught because we would read some really long and hard and old literature. This semester, I decided to change things a little bit, um, and we'll get into the schedule soon. So, if you do want to attract more students to come and join us, you can tell them that the difficulty has been lowered. Now, this class will take the shape of a flipped classroom. Every week you will go home and read something, and then when you come to class, you will talk about some open-ended discussion questions. So, if you haven't read it, then you absolutely need to read it before coming to class, otherwise none of this will make sense. That's what the pictures say. All right, here we have the syllabus and the course packet. Um, I have, I'll talk about that later, but here's the course packet, title, and then the syllabus. So the grading, 40% midterm exam, 40% final exam, and 20% reflections. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And the schedule. So very strangely, week 2 is a holiday, and week 3 is a field trip. Um, Our department is holding an international conference on that day, and I want you all to go. I will also talk about that later today. Weeks 4 to 9 will mostly be poetry, and week 9 will be 2 essays. These are texts that I usually teach in the required British literature course. Did anyone here take my British literature? No? Okay, good. Okay, great. So hopefully you will be reading these for the first time. Each week is either 5 short poems or 1 long poem. Week 9 is 1 mid-length essay and then 1 short essay. Week 7 is another holiday. So after week 9, you will have an online open book take-home exam. And then starting from week 10, we're going to be reading a novel. This novel is really new. It's 2023, and it won the Booker Prize for Literature in English last year, one of the biggest prizes in the literature world. It's also short. The total length is, after rearranging the text and making it smaller, the total length is only 80 pages. On the other hand, the style of the writing is a little bit unusual. There's lots of descriptions, lots of use of language that's not strictly about things that happen, but rather what it looks like, what it feels like. Um, the novel is about 24 hours on the International Space Station, 国际太空站, and what that's like for the astronauts up there. And I'll introduce that in more detail on week 10. Week 15, another day with no class. And then week 16, after we're done with that, you will begin taking your final exam. Weeks 17 and 18 are for self-study, and you will have to fill out some course reflections. Okay? Okay, so here's the thing. I have prepared a handout for you. I will give you that shortly. But there is a difference between the handout and the course packet online. you will notice that the course packet has 131 pages, and the handout does not. In order to save paper, I only give you the assigned reading in the handout. So the course packet has the assigned reading, but it also has author introductions. So you can learn a bit more about the author of each week's reading. And then you have the main text that we're reading, and this has page numbers. And that's why the course packet is so long, because it has a lot of background information. And this also makes the course packet very big. The file size is very big. So yeah, so that's for you to read if you want to. Okay, so syllabus announcements. If I need to tell you something in the middle of the week before the next class, I will post an announcement and Moodle will send you an email. Lecture recordings. I am currently recording this lecture and I will upload it to this YouTube playlist because YouTube will let you search a video. You can open a transcript of everything that I say and you can search the transcript. And if you want to go to that part of the video, just click on that line of the transcript and the video will jump to that part. And you can learn how to do this by watching this YouTube video here. I'll talk about this a little bit later. And then course packet. Right, conference. On week 3, we are going to take a field trip to the international conference. The location is at the, it doesn't say, is on the Jihe campus, Jihe 校区. It's in Taipei. So I think I need a map for this. Okay. There it is. So this is MRT Zhentan Station. So the Taipei campus is here. This is Mingchuan's Taipei campus. Jihe campus is on the other side of this road. So when you get to the MRT station, the exit is on the north side. Go left, cross the street, keep walking, keep walking, keep walking until you reach this building. Enter from the left side of the building, so the closest side. There will be a sign, a very small sign on top of the door that says Mingchuan University. And the conference will be on the 5th floor and the 6th floor. J6 is 6th floor, and then J5 is 5th floor. Now, the bare minimum that you have to do is go to J604 at 12:50 and come take a group photo with me to prove to the school that you guys did come. And you also have to write some reflections about going to the conference and listening to people present their research. And this is to tell me that you actually did listen and you didn't just come, take a photo, and then go. If you want to have lunch at the conference, or if you want to have a paper copy of the program, you have to pay $200. But if you just want to come and take a photo and listen, that I think is free. So here's the program. This is a list. This is a schedule, basically. And it'll take a little bit of practice to read this document. It's divided by day because the conference is actually 3 days long, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Then it has a session. For instance, session A is 8:30 to 8:55. And all of these rooms will happen at the same time. All of these rooms are happening from 8:30 to 8:55. These are called concurrent sessions. So from 8:30 to 8:55, I will be in J503. Each room has a speaker, which is the person who is presenting the ideas, and a moderator, who is the person introducing the speaker and then uh, helping to make sure the Q&A session afterwards goes smoothly. So you can look through the schedule. J616, the opening ceremony, everybody is there. There's no concurrent session. Then you have session B, 9:35 to 10:50. A poster session means that instead of a presentation or a PowerPoint, this person has prepared a poster, 海报, and they will use the poster to give their presentation. You will notice that in this session, there's more than one speaker. So if you go to that room, you get to see 3 different presentations. Then from 11 to 12 is the keynote speech. So for every conference, we invite some very big scholars, very important people to come and share their ideas. These are called keynote speeches. They're 1 hour long, and there's no concurrent session. Everybody goes to the same speech. And then lunch is from 12:10 to 1. From 1 to 1:50, I will be at J604. That's why I want you to come to J604 at 12:50 before this session starts. And you're welcome to stay and listen to me talk also. Yeah, so that's how this schedule goes. There's another keynote speech from 2 to 3. And then the next day, day 2. So you can choose how long you want to stay. You can choose which rooms you want to go to and listen to somebody talk about their subject. You have to listen to at least one session so that you can write your reflections. Okay, questions? Okay, cool. So that's the conference part. And it says the deadline is March 9. This is Sunday. March 7 is a Friday. And then by midnight on Sunday, you have to upload your conference reflections. Here we have some extra material. If you're curious why we're studying literature in an applied English department, you can read this Chinese language essay. And if you want some learning suggestions, how to learn English better, you can read this document also in Chinese. So after that, we have the first half and the second half. Each of these PowerPoints has some open-ended questions for you to discuss in class. So for example, week 4, Philip Sidney, before class, you should go home and read the poems by Philip Sidney that I will give you. And then when you come to class, we're going to talk about those poems. All of these questions are open-ended. I'm not going to ask you, what did this person do? Or what did this person say? I'm going to ask you these kinds of questions. Why do you think this? Why do you think that? How serious do you think he is? How would you describe? Etc. These kinds of open-ended questions. So there's no standard answer. There are wrong answers. If you talk about something completely unrelated, that's going to be wrong. But there's more than one right answer. So don't worry if you think you don't know what you're talking about or whatever. Just share your ideas and we can talk about it together. Okay, next are the exams. They will be 1 week here, 1 week online. So you just take it here. Take home open-ended essay question exams. So the questions will kind of look like our in-class discussion questions, but they will be bigger. You only have to choose to answer one question. Write an English essay answering that question. And the basic rules are here. Has to be an English essay. Has to have multiple paragraphs. The paragraphs cannot be itemized, so you cannot say like number 1, number 2. You can't give me bullet points. You have to use paragraphs and write an essay. And those paragraphs also should not have subtitles. So like um, blah 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 colon and then blah 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 blah. Like don't begin with a subtitle. Just begin your paragraph naturally. Um, they are open books, so you have to give evidence. Give at least 4 different discontinuous pieces of specific evidence from your chosen class reading or readings to support your answer, along with the location of the evidence in parentheses next to each piece of evidence. What does this mean? So you need 4 pieces of evidence at least. They must be different, so you can't use the same line 4 times. They must be discontinuous, which means if your first piece of evidence is line 1, your next piece of evidence cannot be line 2. It has to be from somewhere else. It cannot be connected to your first piece. And finally, you have to tell me which line or which page. So usually I would hope you would give me a quotation. So quotation mark, and then give me your evidence from the reading, end quotation mark, and then in parentheses, 括号, tell me which line or which page. So I know what you're talking about. It is open book, so you can look at other resources. You can go to the library. You can go online. You can watch a YouTube video. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot talk to other people. But you can talk to me, right? You can always ask me questions to make sure you understand what's going on. If you do look for information in other places, you also have to give me the name of the source, the web address, if it has one, the page number, or the timestamp, 时间戳记, if it has one. Also, in parentheses next to each piece of information. Some of you have done reports in high school, and you write the whole report, and then at the very end, you have references, and then you list your sources. Don't do that. I don't want you to say you looked at this stuff to create your answer. I want you to tell me, oh, this idea came from this place. These words came from that place. I want to be able to find what you're talking about. And if you did read a lot of stuff and some of that stuff did not appear in your answer, like you read it to help you understand, but you didn't use it in your answer, you don't have to tell me. So if you do not answer the question, if you answer it in the wrong format so that I suspect you're using AI only and you didn't actually do anything, or you plagiarize, so you take information from somewhere else and you don't tell me where, you will get a 0. Plagiarism includes even the smallest things. So some people will think, oh, like I'm talking about this poem. It's not something that it's not original. I'm just giving a summary. So I can just copy that from Wikipedia. That's fine. It's not fine. If you summarize, if you give pure factual information, you also have to tell me where did you find this summary? Or you should use your own words to write the summary. Don't copy paste and pretend like you found it anywhere or you wrote it yourself. Right? If you take anything from anywhere, tell me what and tell me where. So if I can find that you copied from somewhere, then it's plagiarism. Now, in the middle there, I said, if I think you only used AI, like if you asked AI the question, you copy, you paste, and then you submit, that is also a 0. That's to help you. Because AI can give some terrible answers, but you may not know that the answers are bad. I will know, but you may not. So I'm not going to, I'm going to prevent you from being tempted. I'm just going to say, don't do it. And then finally, because of the way Moodle is designed, once I give you a grade, Moodle will not tell you. You have to check yourself. But you can look at your overall grade for this course here. Just click on grades, and you can see all of your grades this semester in this course. The course total is just you add everything up, and the highest score is 100. So midterm and final are both 40. So the highest score is 40, the highest score is 40. Course reflections, highest score is 20. So you add these three up, the highest score is 100. So you can always keep track of your own score. Here's an article in Chinese explaining why plagiarism is bad. And if you don't have experience writing essay questions, here are some examples that you can look at. These examples are not related to this class, but the way that the answer looks, the way that the person writes the answer could help you make sure that you're giving a good answer. And I gave you one bad example. This is an example of what you should not do. Right, so midterm, final, and then course reflections. Finally, we have an extra credit here. In the past, the course reflections were part of the extra credit, but this semester they are part of the regular grade. So if you do need a higher grade, you'll have to do this one, and it's not easy. And if you have done this before successfully, please tell me, and I will give you a different article to read. And then finally, this semester, our department is holding another short film contest, but the details have not yet been announced. I do know that the rules will be slightly different from last year or last semester. So this semester, if you participate, you create a short film, and it fits all of the rules, I will give you 10 points. Okay, questions about Moodle or this course? All right, so I will divide you into small groups next week. For this week, uh, let's just talk a bit about what you're going to read next week. And so for that, you will need the handout. So let me give you a handout now. You will notice that this handout is not 80 pages long. I will give you the novel after the midterm. So next week, we're going to be reading the poetry of Sir Philip Sidney. He wrote a few decades before Shakespeare. They're the same literary period, and so they use similar language. Sidney is a very important poet of the period because he was one of the first to import the sonnet, or the 14-line love poem, 桑来诗, 14行诗. The sonnet began in Italy during the Renaissance, 文艺复兴, and its most famous poet was Petrarch, 佩托拉克, which in our high school textbooks, he's called the poet laureate, 桂冠诗人, which is not a title we use in English. So I don't know where the high school history teachers got that from. But Petrarch is one of the big three Italian authors of the Renaissance. The other two are, of course, Dante, 但丁, and Boccaccio, 薄伽丘. Dante wrote the Divine Comedy, 神曲, and Boccaccio wrote the Decameron, 十日谈. In case you don't remember high school history. So Petrarch, he invented the sonnet. The sonnet has 14 lines. It's usually about love. The 14 lines are organized into two parts, 8 and 6. We can look at the first one as an example. The first two stanzas, 8 lines, are divided into, well, I should say this. The first 8 lines are about one thing, and then the next 6 lines give a twist. In Italian, this is called a volta, a turn. Sometimes it's a different perspective. Sometimes it's new information. Sometimes it's a response or a reply. It opens up the poem. It gives you a new angle, a new way to look at the subject. The sonnet also follows a strict rhyme scheme. It's ABBA, ABBA. Well, I guess not always ABBA, right? Yeah, ABBA, ABBA, and then CD. Sorry, C. Let's look at this. Lance, prize, eyes, France. ABBA. Ants, advance, applies, rise, chance. ABBA. And then take this, make is. That's CD, CD. And then face, race, EE. So that's the rhyme scheme of a Petrarchan sonnet in English. ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, EE. And the last 2 lines give a sort of conclusion. The meter is also very strict. Meter in Chinese is 格律. So if you don't know, in English, poetry is governed by stress and non-stress. So in Chinese, 轻音重音. So stress is where we put the emphasis, and then non-stress is where we don't put the emphasis. So like when you're learning English words, right, you have to learn the difference between like well, what's a word that has a good difference here? Address and address. It sounds different. It also means something different. One is where you live. The other one is you talk to somebody. So English really cares about this question of stress. And the sonnet uses a pattern of stress and unstress called iambic pentameter. Iambic means that the basic unit is an iamb, and an iamb is a pair of unstressed plus stressed. The. Pentameter, penta means 5. So each line has 5 of these iambs. For example, line 7. His praise to slight, which from good use doth rise. Da 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 da. So that's classic iambic pentameter. It's da da and then 5 times. His praise to slight from good, which from good use doth rise. So that's the meter of an English sonnet. And this is also considered the classic meter for English poetry and British poetry. For many, many years, people wrote using this meter. Okay, now we can also talk a bit about Sir Philip Sidney himself. His name has a Sir in it, so you know that he was very important. He was one of the most beloved courtiers of Queen Elizabeth I. So he had a position in the royal court. He was a very lively person. He was a knight, a soldier, and a patron of the arts, which means he paid people to write poetry and make art. So the queen really loved this guy. He was very faithful. He did many things for the country, fought in many wars. So it's not just about his literature. He was also a really great guy in real life as well. Now, he's a courtier, as it says in line 5, the perfect courtier. A courtier just means somebody whose job is in the court, the royal court. Originally, that just meant that you maybe did things for the king or queen, or maybe you gave them advice. Maybe you controlled some parts of the army. You had a place in the royal court. But over time, not starting around this era, but over time, more and more people worked in the court without really having a job. Like they were just there to entertain the king or queen, to tell jokes, to give advice on anything that happens. So over time, the word courtier started to get a negative meaning. Basically, somebody who's doesn't have a real job. He's just hanging around the center of power, trying to get power for themselves. But at this time, a courtier did things, and you can see that with Sidney, who really did things for the court. And one of the things he did is he wrote poetry. At the time, poetry was kind of like a hobby for rich people, for nobles. If you're a regular person, you are probably a farmer. And if you were a farmer, you were very busy every day and you almost barely didn't have enough food to eat. You would not think about writing poetry. You probably wouldn't even know what poetry was. You would know about songs, but you wouldn't know about these people writing down the songs and caring about the rhyme and things like that. So poetry was usually for the rich and noble, such as Sidney. And at this time, poetry and literature was usually not printed. At, at this time, the printing press was already invented. If you wanted to print something, you can go print it. Not easily, but you could do it if you wanted to. Poetry was considered too good for printing. Printing was usually left for politics and religion. The higher arts, poetry, theater, verse, even essays, like the better kinds, not politics, were usually written by hand, and they were passed around in manuscript. The word manuscript means written in hand or written by hand, handwritten. Manu means hand, script means write. So this sometimes creates some problems for us because if you don't have to print something, then the language does not have to be that consistent. So at this time, different people would spell the same word in different ways. In a sense, it's kind of reminding people how to say the words. You don't necessarily have to read it exactly as it is spelled. It's just a reminder, what is this word? What is that word? So spelling could be different. Sometimes there would be different uses of punctuation. So the periods and the commas would be different. Sometimes poets would use the space on the page differently, or they would make changes directly on the page. So if you ever get to see an original manuscript of some of Sidney's poetry, they can be quite messy and not easy to understand. So the version we have is thanks to the textbook editor, who has relied on trustworthy editors of Sidney's poetry. So this version is supposed to be a bit easier to understand for students. Now, when you look at this, there are two ways that the editor tries to help you. If the editor thinks that the meaning of one or two words needs to be explained, you will see this small circle. And on the right, there will be a translation into modern English. If there are two circles, then the two explanations will be separated by a slash. So this line, it's saying slight means art, use means experience. The second way the editor tries to help you is with footnotes. So for example here, sweet enemy France, footnote 2, and it explains Sidney took part in several tournaments between 1579 and 1585 with French spectators present. So this is for longer explanations and for extra information. If you read something and it doesn't make sense and there's no explanation, one thing you can try is think about the structure of the sentence. At this time, English literature was heavily influenced by Romance languages like French and Italian, and Romance languages like French and Italian came from Latin. In Latin, one of the best speakers, people who gave speeches, one of the best is called Cicero. Cicero, you may have heard his name before. And people thought that he had a great style in how he writes his speeches. And the thing that Cicero loved to do is he loved to put his main verb at the very end of the sentence. Latin is not like English. In English, if you change the order of the words, the sentence means something different. But in Latin, each word tells you where it belongs in the sentence. So if you change the order of the words, the meaning is the same. That's why Cicero can move the verb to the very end and everything will still be fine. So because everybody loved this guy and the way that he wrote, people also liked to put the verb at the very end. For example, horsemen, my skill in horsemanship advance. The verb is advance. The subject is horseman. And the object is my skill in horsemanship. This sentence is saying, horsemen praise my skill in riding horses. So if you're feeling a little confused, maybe you want to go to the very end of the sentence to see if you can find a verb there. And if the verb is at the end of the sentence, you do have to figure out where is the subject and where is everything else, the object or a description or something. So for example, this line, think nature me a man of arms did make. The more usual sentence order is think that nature made, did make means made, me a man of arms. So people think that I was born to be a soldier or a warrior, a man of arms. Arms here means weapons. So if you do find the verb and you manage to rearrange the sentence and you're still confused, then you probably need to look in an English to English dictionary, not an English to Chinese dictionary. First of all, some of these words are a bit too old and the English to Chinese dictionary may not have that word or that meaning. Secondly, if you check an English to Chinese dictionary, it's not going to explain the word, it's going to translate the word. So you'll end up reading a Chinese translation instead of understanding what does this word mean. So go to an English to English dictionary such as dictionary.com. Yes, that is a real website, dictionary.com. And you can look up a word and you want to go down to, sometimes you want to go down to where it says older meaning and see if those work. But often a lot of the language is still used today, just not very often. So, for example, the word arms to mean weapons is usually used in the context of uh, the United States debate about gun control. How much freedom should US citizens have to own and use guns? Because this right, the right to own and use a gun, is called the right to bear arms. To bear means to carry, arms means weapons. Uh, Another more common use is as an adjective to say that somebody is armed, which means somebody has a weapon, usually a gun. And then finally, my last suggestion is take notes as you read. They can help you remember, like physically writing notes on paper can help you remember. If you write short notes and summaries, and when you have to go back and read the poem, you can read your notes and that will help you remember. And finally, the exams are open book. So you will need to go back and reread these texts, and so the notes can help you save time. So like for the poetry, you can either write a note about every poem, you can write a note for every stanza, 每个诗节, like every 4 lines. You can write a note about the first 8 and then the last 6. Anytime you feel like there's something important that you want to remember, write it down. Okay, that's the main introduction. Do you have questions? Okay, if you don't have questions, um, why don't we take a long break for 20 minutes? When we come back, I will guide you in reading uh, the first poem to give you a better sense of the language uh, and to give you some ideas about what it feels like to read these poems. Okay, let's take a look at Sonnet 41. Having this day my horse, my hand, my lance, guided so well that I obtained the prize. So the main verb of the first part of the sentence is guided. So having this day guided my horse, my hand, my lance so well. The lance is, of course, the really long stick that you hold when you're riding a horse and you're trying to poke the other person and make them fall. Actually, let's see if we can get a picture of a lance. Yeah, this kind of thing, right? This is a lance. So the speaker of this poem is, well, the speaker's name is Astrophil. This, these sonnets are taken from a collection called Astrophil and Stella. Here, Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil is a man, Stella is a woman. Stella means star. Astrophil means lover of stars. Astro is star, Phil is love. So it's about the dude and his love for the woman. And most of these poems are from the perspective of Astrophil. So Astrophil is participating in this competition, and he does so well that he obtains the prize, both by the judgment of the English eyes and of some sent from that sweet enemy France. So the judges include English people and French people. The French are a sweet enemy because only recently, at this point, uh, have the English and the French finally finished fighting the Hundred Years' War. So historically, the English and the French have been enemies. Even today, if you accidentally say a swear word, like a bad word, a curse word, 脏话, you can say, pardon my French, 抱歉不小心说了法文. And then the footnote says that this competition uh, had, yeah, English and French people. So Astrophil does really well. And then line 5, horsemen, my skill in horsemanship advance. So the horsemen think that I won because I'm really good at riding the horse. Advance here means to give as the reason for my winning. And the footnote says advance means put forward as the reason for my triumph. Yeah, that's what I said. Town folks, my strength. So the ordinary people from the towns think that I won because I'm strong. A daintier judge here means more discerning, so somebody who is more careful about the judgment. A daintier judge applies his praise to slight, which from good use doth rise. So this judge, this more careful judge, thinks that I won because of my skill. Art actually means skill. And this is because I have good experience. From good use, good experience doth rise. Doth means does. D-O-E-S, does. From good experience arises my skill, and that's why I win. Some lucky wits imputed but to chance. And then there are some people who fortunate enough to this is kind of sarcastic. He's saying people who think they're very smart think that I win out of luck. Or I should say people who themselves are lucky and who are, trying to show that they know what's going on. Impute means accord, which means chalk it up to. Think this is the reason. But to chance. But means only. So people who are lucky, of course, think that I win because I'm lucky. Others, because of both sides I do take, my blood from them who did excel in this, Think nature me a man of arms did make. So the first 8 lines are the usual reasons, and then the next 3 lines are a more specific reason. Other people, because I take from both sides, which means my blood, from them who did excel in this. So he's saying, I have ancestors on my father's side, I have ancestors on my mother's side, and both sets of ancestors are really good at riding horses at this kind of tournament. So some people think because both sides of my family, my blood, are good at this, I got this from them. I got my skill from them. And therefore they think others is the subject, think is the verb. Nature made me a man of arms. I was born to be a warrior. So when he says my blood, the footnote tells us which members of his family um, were good at this kind of tournament. Maternal means from the maternal means from the mother's side. So some people, so we have several reasons, right? Some say he won because he's good at riding his horse. Others say he's strong. Others say he's very skillful because he has lots of experience. Some say he's just lucky. Some say he has a good family background, so he inherited his skill genetically. Of course, at the time they didn't know about genes. And then finally, the turn, how far they shoot awry. They're all wrong. The true cause is Stella looked on, and from her heavenly face sent forth the beams which made so fair my race. So from her face sent forth the beams. This is talking about her eyes. You know, sometimes we say that somebody has very bright eyes. So at that time, they thought that the eyes actually did give off light. This is before Newton. So he's saying because Stella was there and she's so beautiful, and her eyes and her face shined her light on me, and that's why I did so well in this tournament. Which made so fair my race, which made my race so fair. Fair usually means beautiful. Here it means he did very well. So now you know what this poem is talking about. Yeah, so you'll see that the skills you need to read these poems include some vocabulary and lots of grammar. So like, for example, line 9, you have to be able to see that the subject is other people, and then there's a comma here, and there's another comma here. So in between these two commas is extra information. The real verb is think. And then they think that, there's no that. Uh, Within the that, nature is the subject, make is the verb, or did make is the verb, me is the object, and then the rest of the sentence is here. So you do need a little bit of grammar. This is why in our department I teach grammar, because you have to have grammar to read literature. Okay, do you have questions about this poem? Okay, we have a little bit of time left. We can look at another poem. So, by the way, I gave you 5 poems, and then I gave you 1 poem by Shakespeare. You don't have to read the Shakespeare poem if you don't want to. It's a good poem. Shakespeare, most of his poetry was very good. That's just there because um, this is from an older handout, and if I take away this, then you only have half a page. I can't fit anything onto this page anyway, so I might as well give you a free poem. Okay, so let's look at one more. Poem 47. What? Have I thus betrayed my liberty? The word what doesn't mean anything. It just means, huh? How? Why? Have I thus betrayed my liberty? Thus means in this way. Can those black beams such burning marks engrave in my free side? So yes, when I'm reading this poem, I crossed to the next line without pausing. The meter ends this line here, but when we read a poem out loud, we should follow the grammar and the punctuation. You don't have to pause at the end of each line unless there is punctuation. So here, black beams is again Stella's eyes. She has black eyes. Such burning marks engrave. So engrave such burning marks. Here it says these burning marks are brands of slavery. A brand is when you take a hot piece of iron and you stick it onto usually a cow or a pig's skin, and you leave a mark on the animal so that everybody knows this is your animal. That's the origin of the modern word brand for a company because it's based on their logo. Here it's talking about brands for slavery. So he's saying, I have been made a slave by your beautiful black eyes. So like previously, the side of his body was free, right? So the brand is stuck onto him, and then afterwards he becomes no longer free. Or am I born a slave, whose neck becomes such yoke of tyranny? Becomes means is suited to. Yoke. A yoke is so like if you're a farmer and you own a cow and you want or an ox, 水牛, and you want the ox to pull your plow, 你的那个犁田, you need to put something on the ox to pull the plow. The thing you put on the ox is the yoke. I'm sure there's a Chinese word for it, but I can't remember what it is. Anyone remember? 知道我在讲什么吗？知道我在讲什么？知道中文是什么？啊？犁? I think Li is the thing that's in the ground, right? But there's anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So he's uh he's saying his neck is very suited for this kind of uh controlling mechanism of tyranny. Tyranny, the original meaning, the really, really old original meaning is the ruler of a country that is not the son of the previous ruler. And from there, we get the modern word tyrant, 暴君, somebody who takes control of a country and rules it like a king. Here, it just means somebody who has total control. Or tyranny, so it's not a person. The idea of total control. Or want I a sense to feel my misery? Want means lack. Want I means lack I means do I lack? So this is an older form of asking a question. If you put the verb in front of the subject, you're either asking a question or you are using the subjunctive, 假设语气. So you're talking about something that maybe will happen. In this case, it's a question because there's a question mark. So he's saying, what? Did I lose my freedom that fast just because you looked at me? Or was I in fact born to be a slave? And so I can't even feel the unhappiness of being not free. Or sprite, which means spirit, disdain of such disdain to have. So I can't feel my misery, or I can't feel my own spirit. And I disdain even my own disdain. Disdain is a feeling of contempt, 蔑视, 藐视. So I have contempt for my contempt. I don't even feel the contempt for myself. It's a They cancel each other out. 彼此互相取消. Two negatives make a positive. 负负得正. Who, he's talking about himself, for long faith, though daily help I crave, may get no alms but scorn of beggary. So this is a relative pronoun, 官代, and he's talking about himself. This is the subject, I. So for long faith, so in exchange for my long period of faithfulness and devotion, though daily help I crave, even though every day I hope to get some help, I hope to get something in return for my faith, may get no alms but scorn of beggary. An alms, singular and plural, are both alms. An alms is what you give to a begging monk. So in Christianity, some monks, uh, every monk takes a religious vow, right? They say, I will leave the world behind, I will only follow God. Some monks also say they will leave money behind and they will not work for money. They will live only by the grace of God. And that means they go out and ask people for money. If you give this kind of monk money, you are giving alms. So here he's comparing what he gets. He's comparing his love as kind of like a beggar's love for people, but he's saying that the only alms he gets is scorn. People dislike him. Here, of course, it's not people. He's talking about Stella. He's comparing his love for her like he's a religious monk and he's asking her for alms and she doesn't give him anything. Scorn is also contempt. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's exactly what I said. Scorn for my begging. Virtue awake. He's trying to wake himself up. Beauty, but beauty is. Remember, but means only. So beauty is only beauty. There is nothing especially holy or powerful or important about beauty. It's just beauty. I may, I must, I can, I will, I do leave following that which it is gain to miss. So he's trying to convince himself, I have to stop. Leave following means to stop. That which it is gain to miss. So if I lose it, that helps me. If I miss it, if I lose it, I gain. It's to my benefit. You can also read this in the opposite direction. Traditional ideas of chivalric love is a man loves a woman and doesn't expect her to give him anything in return. If she does love him back, that's great. If she doesn't, that's fine. The point is that he loves her. So it is gain to miss is saying if she doesn't love him back, that just proves that his love is pure. He's not loving her to get anything. He's loving her because he loves her. So he's saying, like, I should stop doing this. Let her go. And then we have the turn, the final turn, soft, which means quiet. But here she comes. Like so he's like saying, I really gotta stop doing this. But wait, no, here she's coming. Go to, which is kind of like it's kind of like in the Chinese, 去你的, like stop talking like this. Unkind, I love you not. So he's calling her unkind and saying to her, I don't love you. Oh me, which is like, oh heavens, 我的天呐. That I doth make my heart give to my tongue the lie. To give something the lie means to contradict. So he's saying, when I see her eyes again, everything I just said becomes a lie. It turns out I do still love her. Um, so you can see after the first eight, there is a volta, right? He's saying, I have to wake up. I have to convince myself, don't like stop doing this. And then in the final three lines, in the conclusion, there is a reverse. Turns out, no matter how much he tries to convince himself, he still loves her. Oh, how romantic. Okay, questions about this one? Okay, I'm gonna leave the final three to you guys, so you have something to read for the next 3 weeks. I'll see you at the conference in 2 weeks.